Let's move over to Podcast Cringe. New video from Podcast Cringe. New video from Podcast Cringe. Bryan Callen just ruined his entire career. It's going to be an overview of what we saw last stream. I know, apologies. But let's see how Podcast Cringe interprets this whole event where Bryan tried to explain or tried to kind of clear up his earlier comment about Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files and whatever else it may be. But let's see how Podcast Cringe has to say about it.
What bothers me is like, I hate him more. I hate him more. Shut the up, okay, with the virtue signaling. Yes, it's not hard to hate a scumbag like that.
You got to look more into it, B, and you would be so much more upset.
But I haven't looked.
But that's
I
the
don't
issue.
need to look into it.
You do though.
No, because
you do if your take's gonna be they didn't know.
No, my take is this: if you knew about that guy,
all of them did,
then you're a scumbag.
Then all these people we're mentioning are scumbags. They all knew.
How do you know? How do you know they did?
There's emails in the. That's why you got to look into it.
Yeah.
In the 3 million.
I don't have time to look into 3 million, but yeah.
But then don't comment on it and say, well, they didn't know.
Exactly.
What I'm saying, about the whole thing is,
I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah.
If you looked into it, you'd be like, what the fuck?
So we got to make sure here, Bubba, because Alan,
I'm positive.
Okay, so bottom line is this.
Go to coffee. What are you on? Google? Get out of Google.
Hold on.
Go to CoffeeZilla.
Let me just say this.
Go to CoffeeZilla.
We're gonna move on from this.
Imagine Brendan being the voice of reason. It's fucking crazy. Yo, big up Andrew. I appreciate you. Thank you for that comment. Big up Andrew. Appreciate you.
Listen.
The latest release of files in the Epstein cover-up has exposed so much more than just the rich and powerful men inside them. It's quickly becoming a litmus test to identify all of the biggest creeps who never made it onto the island but can't stop defending those who did. And by now we've all seen Joe Rogan expose himself as an elitist sympathizer who jumps to the defense of his billionaire buddies at the slightest hint of criticism.
Underage people. That term is fucking crazy, man.
When it came to the fork in the road for Rogan, he made his choice crystal clear for the world to see. There's no conspiracy, there's no cover-up, it's simple. Girls, juice, deals. But then there's Bryan Callen and Brendan Schaub, and I never would have picked this. What started as a pedestrian conversation on The Fighter and the Kid last week, talking about the new Epstein files drop, turned into a career-defining moment for both Callen and Schaub that nobody could have seen coming. And like I said in my last video, Brendan deserves a bunch of credit for the way he's handled this whole situation. The thing you have to remember with Brendan is that he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's made a fool out of himself for years by lying, bullying, and scamming people, including his own audience, and I've called him out for more than his fair share of fuck-ups. But seeing him shine like this while his buddies are absolutely frying their reputations is like watching a wild horse running freely on the beach. What a sight to behold. Finally, after all these years of being the butt of the joke, Brendan's breaking free from the shackles and proving to the world that, sure, he's a massive dumbass with shit for brains, but at least he's not a creep.
So let me just address the amount of shit I got for my last episode.
But you've had bad takes.
Yeah.
I think that's your worst take.
It wasn't a bad take. Because here's my take.
It wasn't a bad take. So you got loads of shit from people on social media, and you interpreted all the shit that they gave you as, oh, that's not a bad take. You guys are just all wrong. That's the definition of having a bad take, no? Classic lolcow, isn't it? Classic lolcow cope. Everyone else is wrong, not me.
This is what embarrasses me when people are trying to out-hate a pedophile. You don't hate a pedophile more than I do, okay? Nobody does. Nobody's making excuses for that scumbag's behavior.
Who's trying to out-hate a PDF like more than him? People are just shocked that he's trying to defend or excuse or undermine or just basically make it seem like it's not the term. Basically, not make it seem it's not that big of a deal. But nobody's saying that nobody's trying to out hate PDFs more than you. Like, what a weird rationalization. What a weird rationalization there.
Scumbag. Let me say it if it's not gonna. Jeffrey Epstein's a scumbag. Should have been in jail forever in 2008. Nobody disagrees with that. If you do disagree with that, you got problems.
So after Bryan Callen chose the worst hill in the world to die on last week, this week he's coming out all guns blazing and calling out all the virtue-signaling, moral grandstanding sheep who are trying to outdo themselves by declaring Epstein is a bad man. But whatever truth there might be to his basic argument that it's easy to call out one of the most evil people in history, all of that is undone by his sheer ignorance on the entire matter.
Exactly.
The thing that Bryan can't seem to understand is that if he just spent 5 minutes doing the most basic research on the latest Epstein drop, he might begin to understand why people get so pissed off when he defended Woody Allen last week.
If you were Steve Bannon and you were going to do a documentary to revive his name after you knew...
Not gonna lie, people miss. By the way, look at that face. That's the same face he did. He does his over enunciation expression thing when he's feeling nervous and rattled, and he's trying to convince you that he's telling the truth. He does this a lot. I noticed the same thing we did when he's trying to deny the fucking rape allegations. I don't think enough has been said about his defense or the way he was kind of like wanking over Jerry Seinfeld. Sorry, Jerry Seinfeld's ex, right? That 17-year-old girl that he was with for 4 years. I thought those comments were worse than the fucking Woody Allen comments. I thought the way he was like, oh yeah, look, she was stacked. She was stacked, man. Look at her, 17. Who wouldn't do that, you know? Like, I think those comments are way worse than what he said about Woody Allen. Woody Allen and his like stepdaughter, Mary, whatever.
About it, you're a scumbag.
Well, hey, B, you know who directed most of that stuff?
Who?
Your boy Woody Allen.
He directed what?
A documentary on Epstein.
Look that up.
Oh no,
I thought it was Steve Bannon. Because if he did,
Steve Bannon did, and Woody Allen and him are so close. Yeah, and he was giving him notes on what to say.
If you knew that then you're a scumbag.
Part of the issue is you showing any sort of sympathy for Woody Allen or Epstein. That's the issue.
If Woody Allen knew that Epstein, his friend, was a convicted child.
No, he didn't direct a documentary. He gave him on interviews what to say, how his exact words, not to look like such a monster.
He said that, or was that Steve Bannon, Bob?
No, that's Woody. Woody Allen is.
He did not produce a documentary about him. So we got to make sure here, Bubba, because Alan.
I'm positive.
Okay, so bottom line is this.
Go to Listen, what are you on Google? Get out of Google.
Hold on.
Go to Coffeezilla.
Let me just say this. We're going to move on from this. Listen.
Boss Chin, like, don't shout at me. Like, what do you want to do? You want to go and DuckDuckGo? Like, what the fuck? Get out of Google. Like, why is he shouting at him? I'm sure the frustration is aimed towards Bryan, but still, Chin should have some backbone. Like, what the fuck are you shouting at me? Like, relax. Get out of Google.
That's so wild. So even after all the backlash from last week's episode, Callen didn't even bother to check out CoffeeZilla's video that went through some of the biggest names in the files, even though both Schaub and Chin, the producer, were telling him to go and watch it. And there are a whole bunch of people covering what's in the files. You don't necessarily have to watch CoffeeZilla's video, but at least Schaub did the bare minimum before talking about it on his own podcast. And yes, Brendan was absolutely 100% correct there, believe it or not.
You know, he says, do you think I can do my own video interview and upload it to YouTube? No sandbagging, interview format, or like a diary piece. Steve Bannon says, if you do an interview, it can't be like Johnny does a YouTube. It has to be amazingly professional and perfectly cut. Then Jeffrey Epstein responds, Woody, we assume Woody Allen, because they were close, said he would help edit. Not sure how to stage, what points to make, but better than trying to do an interview that I have no experience doing. Goal is to humanize the monster. Anything written carries little weight, to which Steve Bannon replies, yes, Jeffrey Epstein, should it be an interview format, interviewed by me? They start talking about, like, how do we do this? Humor, apology, how did I get rich? Question mark, topics. Their brave story, how do we trick the public into seeing me as more than a monster? Now, funny enough, right before this, Jeffrey Epstein asks about a dinner with Woody, and then he says, or too many pedos in one place. Jesus. And you gotta love the self-awareness there. Now, I don't know what he meant by that. To be clear, I'm not making that accusation against Woody Allen. We'll talk about him in a second. That's Jeffrey Epstein saying that. I think what's interesting to point out, though, is how all these rich and powerful people are circling the wagons to try to protect Jeffrey Epstein's reputation, right? This is a guy who at this point has been known for years to have pled guilty to these 2008 charges. This was an open secret.
So Callen couldn't even spare 37 minutes of his precious time to watch a YouTube video that would have saved him the embarrassment of defending a known creep. And central to his argument that people apparently couldn't seem to understand is that we shouldn't be accusing all of these millionaires and billionaires who are so desperate to visit Epstein's island, because how were they to know that Epstein was a registered offender?
Disgusting.
As you guys know, for me personally, that's the sticking point. It's not that all these guys didn't know about Epstein's his history with underage people, or as I like to call them, fucking children, it's precisely because of his history that they were so desperate to go for a visit.
If anybody was friends with Jeffrey Epstein and they knew what he was guilty of, okay, you're a scumbag.
Bryan,
By the way, this reaction that he has, right? This has to be because he might be in the 3 million files to come in it, right? Is that why? Just thinking about it, what's the theory about why he reacted this way? Why he was defending? Like, was it because he just was ignorant and unaware of what the actual Epstein files were and the details of it, and he was not willing to do the necessary research or reading or watching a video summarizing some of the findings and the latest dump and stuff? Or was it because he might be in those files and he's nervous and he's trying to like preemptively, you know, dismiss it, dumb it down somewhat? I don't know. I'm still not really sure why he's like. Part of me thinks his reaction, Bryan's reaction, is in due because he was accused of what he was accused of, right? Or alleged of, or whatever. What it was alleged that he kind of did to those women. So maybe he has this weird solidarity with men who get accused of things like that, I guess. You know, I don't know. I don't even know if that's even enough, because he seems kind of like, and again, if you watch the clip, he seems really annoyed that people are like talking about it the way they're talking about it. He thinks it's all like he thinks it's a bit of a trend type of thing, right? It's people just wanting to be seen and to try, like, you know, to outcompete each other about who hates pedos more and stuff. Like, he doesn't, you know what I mean? He seems to be more annoyed about how the public, how social media at large is responding to the files and the people that are on them and the way they're getting fucking hounded and than the people who actually did the alleged acts and stuff or are in the files. It's just very confusing why that might be the case.
Part of the issue. They all knew, dude.
So if they knew, then
the
they're
smartest,
scumbags.
powerful people in the world are not just like, what? I had no clue. They didn't get to those positions and just be like, oh, I had no clue. So all of them now are saying we have no clue.
Let me reiterate.
Yes, buddy.
So Epstein's a scumbag.
Correct.
Anybody that covered for him in 2008, and the real story is, who the was able to tell the FBI to back off when a guy was dead to rights in 2008? Why are we not hearing about that? Who did it? Who had influence over the FBI? I want to know that.
Maybe ask your dad, in it. Doesn't your dad allegedly work for the CIA? He would have influence over the FBI. That's something that would happen, no?
Because those are the people that knowingly covered for a scumbag and a monster. There are a lot of people in these emails that clearly were like, you got a bunch of Russian girls and I can go out on an island. That's a separate thing, okay? That's a separate thing. You want to be a freak and get your freak on or whatever.
You got to look more into it, B, and you would be so much more upset.
But I haven't looked.
But that's the issue.
I don't need to look into it.
You do, though.
No, because
you do if your take's going to be they didn't know.
No,
Jesus
my take
Christ,
is this.
I don't need to look into
if
it,
you knew about that guy,
all of them did,
then
Bryan.
you're a scumbag.
Then all these people were mentioned are scumbags. They all knew.
How do you know? How do you know they did?
There's emails in the. That's why you got to look into it.
Yeah.
In the 3 million.
I don't have time to look into 3 million, but yeah.
But then don't comment on it and say, well, they didn't know.
What I'm saying,
That's what I'm
about
saying,
the whole
B.
thing is,
I'm trying to help you out.
Yeah.
If you looked into it, you'd be like, what the fuck?
He's such a condescending arsehole, isn't it? He's such a condescending arsehole. Imagine Brendan being the voice of reason here. Honestly, I don't have time to look into 3 million emails, but I'm going to have loads of these uninformed opinions, right? I'm going to be wrong and strong about something. Oh, especially this topic. It's fucking crazy.
I honestly didn't know Brendan was capable of this level of awareness and relatability. I'm going to be 100% serious for a second here, so hear me out. And look, if you disagree, then so be it. By the way, keep this in, Chin. Don't edit this out. Seeing Brendan push back like this against Bryan Callen genuinely made me feel like Schaub is our guy on the inside. You know, when Rogan used to have a guest on who was completely...
Come on, man. Come on, podcast cringe. Let's relax a little bit. Let's relax. It's one topic. It's one topic that Brendan seems to have his head screwed on right, you know? Let's fucking relax. Let's fucking relax. Also, this picture is fucking crazy, by the way. This is a crazy picture to kind of have here while you're, you know, glazing the guy. But let's fucking relax, podcast cringe. Let's rein it in a little bit. And maybe he's joking. Maybe this is kind of what he does, right? I wonder if he's actually going to release a stand-up special. There's a lot of jokes in it. Podcast cringe is running. Because if I ever started doing stand-up, right? If I ever went to starting open mics, I'm not going to be on here like running jokes by you or slipping them in when I'm doing the little stream and shit. Podcast cringe is always on here like with these fucking jokes, right? With these little one-liners and shit. Like, why am I going for podcast cringe? Is he gonna? Do you think podcast cringe is gonna get going in stand-up? Do you think he's gonna want to try and, you know, I get all these views on YouTube. Imagine if I just translated them into my special. He might actually get into stand-up, you know. It feels like he's gonna get into stuff because he's really lacing these videos with a lot of some would say unnecessary jokes, you know, unnecessary jokes. But he needs to relax with this Brendan glazing. Let's chill. It's one topic, one subject that Brendan has his head screwed on right about. Brian's the only person that said, yeah, let's chill. Let's just chill a little bit.
And obviously full of shit, and Rogan would scrunch up his face and be like, wait, what? That's exactly how I felt throughout this entire episode of The Fighter and the Kid. Every time Callen would say something stupid, Brendan would immediately push back and correct him. So I don't know if he upped his dose of alpha brain or started injecting scorpion milk directly into his veins. Whatever it is, it's working. Like, did you hear what Callen was saying there? If you want to be a freak and get your freak on or whatever, that's separate. I can't stand hearing that shit. It's exactly the same as Rogan and Mike Girls Juice Deals Benz on JRE the other day, where they were making it out as if it was all just boys being boys, with a few instances of illegal behavior. But we don't have to worry about that, right? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. As for Bryan Callen, though, things only got worse.
What I'm saying is this. It's very simple. If whoever covered for that guy in 2008, that's what we need to find out. You want to find the people that really knew they were covering for a scumbag and he was out of jail for the next, what was it, 9 years or something, 10 years, 13 years? Whoever did that is guilty. It needs to hang, okay?
But it's not one person. It's all the powerful people. They're all into this. There's so many ties,
right?
And they're all helping each other out. So nobody gets in trouble. There's nothing to see here.
It's an empire of evil.
But the problem is the empire of evil and the most powerful people. The other issue you have is some of it is just, you know, rich dudes, scumbags who want to get the rocks off. Then a big part of it is child trafficking. So anytime there's like, well, they didn't know, or Epstein was doing
nobody
this.
Nobody here, like when I shot my first deer, okay? He said, that's a good shot.
What a weird analogy.
He said, have you shot before? And I said, no, but I've been killing pedophiles in my mind with a high-powered rifle since I was as long as I can remember. So my problem is we all...
Bro, what?
Exactly. It's him trying really hard to come. Oh my God, Bryan Callen, man. Honestly, what a revealing episode, man. He really shit the bed, man. He really shit the bed. Really fucking shit the bed. I'm loving it though. I'm loving Bryan Callen doing this, like going on a one-man mission to fucking tank TFATK by himself. I fucking love it. We might get into a show where it's just Brendan and Nick Simmons, or Brendan by himself doing this show, man, with Chin. Another version of Shortshire.
What the fuck kind of analogy is that? It doesn't even make sense. That was the best you could come up with, Brian? Fuck, sorry, I had to jump in and call that out.
We all know that anybody who has underage kids is a scumbag and should go away forever,
this guy,
right?
That's this guy.
Who?
It's Epstein.
I'm very aware of
other
that.
people.
I've never said anything other than he's a scumbag
and that's
and a pig.
And my thing is, that's the only take. There's no, that's what they did back in the day.
I agree with you. I agree it's the only take.
Yes.
I agree it's the only take.
That's it.
That's
There's
right.
no wiggle room.
And anybody who knew about his complicity.
Which they all did.
Now, hold on. What I'm saying also is there were a lot of people in those emails that thought Jeffrey Epstein had the best parties. I don't think Elon Musk knew I don't think he knew that Jeffrey Epstein was into. And I don't think when he said, let's go to the island and have a party, I think it sounds like he wanted to get his freak on.
There's an email between Bannon, Woody Allen.
Now
listen to this. Yeah. Bannon, Woody Allen, and Epstein. And they go, should we all go to lunch? Or is that too many pedophiles in one room?
What's Callen's response? What's the response there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's, again, one of the good.
Wow, yeah. What's your response to that, bro? Respond to that. Respond to that, please. Wow, yeah. Wow, yeah. That's your response.
The things about these emails coming out is that nobody can hide.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, the irony of Bryan Callen saying one of the good things is that nobody can hide when he single-handedly exposed himself for being an elitist sympathizer in the space of 2 episodes of The Fighter and the Kid. But he's right, though. The actual content of the files is one thing, but the effort from the media, including guys like Joe Rogan and Bryan Callen, to minimize the severity of the revelations coming out of the Epstein drop has been a whole scandal within itself. And that's where Bryan completely miscalculated the room, because this isn't about virtue signaling or who can say Epstein bad man the loudest. It's also about exposing patterns of behavior in people like him and Rogan. Here we have grown men who have nothing to do with Epstein bending over backwards to reframe something that doesn't need reframing. Every time Callen says, well, hold on, or let's not jump to conclusions, he's not being nuanced or careful, he's just revealing what his instincts truly are, and with a track record of having his own allegations, it's not exactly doing him any favors. And Bryan isn't insulated like Rogan is. He doesn't have Spotify money, he doesn't have $1 billion shield. Exactly. He's a 60-year-old hack comedian with a podcast that barely cracks 40K.
But I think that's his superpower, though. Good point by Podcast Cringe, but I think that's his superpower. In the same way that Rogan can, essentially, Rogan could be the way he is now, and it's not really going to impact him, right? In terms of how he's playing down the Epstein files, how he's kind of turned away from the conspiracy theories that he was super into because it kind of lines up with his political shift and maybe the friends that he's kind of garnered over the last few years. It's not really affected him negatively because he's super rich. I think in the same token, as I said previously, as I say all the time on this fucking stream, I think there's a lot of similarities between very poor people and very rich people. So I think in this particular case, because Rogan's very rich and has all the resources and is super famous, it doesn't seem to affect him when he says these nonsense things or have these horrible takes or plays down these fucking allegations or has these people on these pod who are whitewashing or trying to play down and explain away and whatever, like that Mike Benz guy on his podcast. In the same token, on the flip side, Callen, because he's super irrelevant, because Callen is super irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, he can also say these type of things and it won't really impact him, in the grand scheme of things. Now, who knows? Maybe tomorrow's episode of TFATK, they'll announce, Bryan's got his gigs cancelled, right? Whatever, some shitty fucking comedy company's working in. But it doesn't, that's the nature of the landscape we're in at the moment. Callen kind of got away with his allegations also because he's kind of irrelevant. Yes, he lost his fucking Netflix show he's meant to do with Chris D'Elia. He was booted off that other show he was on, right? Schooled or whatever he was on, the Goldberg Schooled. No, I think the Goldbergs was the main show. Schooled was the show that he did that was kind of like a whatever they called it, right? The show, So he did that. So maybe he lost those 2 jobs because of the allegations, but by and large he was okay because of how non-famous he is, right? So it kind of helps in a way. It kind of helps.
Views, trying to sound like the smartest guy in the room while openly admitting he hasn't even read the material he's arguing about. And then he has the balls to call everyone else out for moral grandstanding. The craziest part is he didn't have to do any of this. Nobody's forcing him to defend the reputations of the people named in the files. It's just his natural instinct to side with the accused. And while we're at it, how the fuck is Brendan going to sit there and have the most rational and reasonable takes out of all these guys when he's the one with Bryan Callen and Chris D'Elia on his own payroll? Just saying. But this episode got so out of...
That's such a good point, by the way. Imagine Bryan Callen and Chris D'Elia being your co-hosts on your 2 main shows that probably pay you the most or whatever, right? Your most high profile shows, and you have such a common sense take such a strong position on these files. I wonder if they're going to talk about it on the golden hour. They probably shouldn't. They probably should avoid it. I wonder if they'll talk about the Epstein files on the golden hour.
Of hand that at one point, Brendan had to literally explain to Bryan in the simplest terms what trafficking is.
But he would travel all over the world to procure girls for Epstein and all these high-profile people.
Yeah, a pimp.
Basically, but it's sad because he would take pictures of him, picture him naked, and then send to Jeffrey Epstein, and then they were like, he was like,
not just to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sure.
Well,
there's a whole
hold on. And then so he would say,
shut the fuck up.
Basically, like, yeah, her number one, and it's sad too because they're like 16, 17, 18, and it'd be like, and even younger, and it would be like, yeah, her dream in life is come to America and become a model. And they put model in quotes and like laugh about it. So they'd find these poor people in the favelas, in the UK, all over. Like, yeah, we'll make your American dream come true. And then they trap
poor people in the UK. Big up the poor people in the UK. Support the poor people in the UK. Support people, the poor people in the UK. Like the stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member. By the way, also note this stream will be a members only stream. Once this stream ends, it will be only available to rewatch as a member. So make sure if you want to rewatch this stream in full that you become a member. Don't delay, become a member today. Let's hit the 500 target by the end of the month. Let's fucking do this. Let's go.
Is anybody surprised by that? They take your passport, or you just get there and you're like an 18, 17, whatever you are, and you're there and you're like, what? I'm on an island now. And what's it? Is that the...
Is anyone surprised? Bro, like... He keeps, again, he's more angry at people being surprised and outraged by it. You're allowed to be surprised and outraged by these abhorrent acts, by these crimes, by these abuses of power. You know, you're allowed to be you're allowed to be surprised. You're allowed to be shocked. You're allowed to be fucking outraged by it. Why is he more fucking annoyed about people's responses than he is about the people who did the abusing, the criminals, the monsters themselves, the evil people? Like, fucking hell, this fucking guy, man. This a wrinkly old man.
Ex-president, and, you know,
when you see it in writing, like, holy fuck. Imagine that's somebody's daughter, dude. And her
going
dream,
on, Bubba, it's
and they
been
have
going
no money.
on. It is called, well, that's what trafficking is. And it's still,
but when these powerful people,
it's still going on.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
But when you see these powerful people, politicians, and these famous people, and you're like, what the f are you guys doing, man? What is going on? What the f is going on?
They're nerds who want to get laid and get their free cop.
But that's a cop out, like, because these nerds who want to get laid, you can get laid in America. You don't have to fucking traffic some underage girl. There's other ways to.
If you're rich, if you're as rich as someone like Bill Gates, I don't know. You'd think you'd. It's I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it.
It's like Bryan gets so close to understanding the concept of what an international trafficking ring actually is, but then reverts back to, but most of these guys just wanted to get their rocks off and get laid.
Anyway, I'll leave it there, by the way. I'll let you watch the last 5 minutes by yourself. Big up Podcast Cringe. Always great videos from him. Bryan Callen's clearly defending somebody that he knows that's on that list that's meant to be coming out. Maybe he might be on a list himself, or he just feels very triggered, right? He feels very triggered by all these allegations because it maybe reminds him about the conundrum that he had to go through when he was accused of what he was accused of. But fucking no, what a crazy episode.